Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Centric. This being the show where I talk about TV shows that are crime dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Tracker, Season 1, Episode 8. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I wasn't quite sure what to make of that opening. Obviously, I knew they were committing some kind of crime and just the drinking the beer and everything, I guess that's right to kind of help your nerves after everything. But I thought all right, you faked a crash or something. My immediate thought was are you trying to cover up a death and make it seem like it was a car accident when in actuality it wasn't? I didn't know if it was another person involved, another vehicle, or whether it was just someone in the passenger seat with Sully. I just wasn't sure what that opening was. But we find out Sully is the fiance that disappeared, because that's what the case that Coulter is working on in this case. Obviously, he comes into it with a little cynicism. I guess you could say cynicism, but it's a little cynicism, a little realism of, hey, the guy bailed. He was, wedding's 2 weeks from now, and he bailed. He could have gotten cold feet. It happens a lot more than you think. But, I don't know if that's just, once again, how much of just everyday life experience is that pulled from Coulter's experience, or just kind of maybe, which I was about to say maybe it has something to do with his upbringing, everything with his dad. It can color. Your experiences color your perspective, obviously, in totality of something. So if you don't have the greatest, because obviously we know he has a complicated love life, because he really doesn't have much of one of what we've seen so far in the show. It seems like he kind of goes out of his way to not have a love life at all, right? So that's where that cynicism comes from. But once again, maybe it is just purely him being pseudo-realistic at the same time. So maybe that's an element to the whole thing as well. So, but either way, he meets Daniela, who's Sully's fiance, who I kept looking at oh, is she who I think she is? And I saw her name in the opening credits, and I Googled her just to make sure it's the person I was thinking of. But yes, her name is Nicole Munoz. The thing I best know her for is playing Jack in the show Van Helsing. I want to say she was also in an episode of Supernatural as well. I think it was one episode in the final season she was in, but I could be misremembering. Either way, putting all that aside, she's coming from the perspective of she believes something's going on for him to suddenly disappear, because sadly Sully has a checkered past. He used to get in trouble when he was younger. In fact, her dad has a very negative perspective on Sully. It's just coming from the perspective of a leopard can't change its stripes, which is so interesting. Despite Coulter just being hey, he might have ran away, he even brought it up to Daniela, because it's right, it's something you have to consider as a possibility to prepare herself for. But when Daniela's father was saying oh, he's a tiger, you can't change their stripes or whatever, that it was Coulter that was no, people can change. So it's that's where it's how much of that really was cynicism, and how was it just him being from a statistic standpoint, which we know he is a numbers guy, so he wasn't even cynicism. It probably was just realism, but I do still think there was some cynicism involved in it. Either way, you figured, well, let me start off with, obviously, Coulter ends up he ends up working with the Sheriff Miller just because, well, first and foremost, they end up finding the car that Sully was kind of dealing with at the beginning of the episode. And, obviously it seems oh, maybe it was an accident, someone got hurt. But then you find out, no, it was all a setup. In fact, Sully was not even in the car at the time. Did we ever get an explanation for that blood? I don't think we actually ever did we? That's kind of interesting. I don't think we did, but I don't... Because they were saying later on that they were going to test it to see if it was Simone's blood or not. But I don't remember them ever actually confirming whether or not that actually was Simone's blood. I'm why would that be there though? I wonder, because I wonder, was she dead by then or not? Maybe she was still alive then, and maybe that really was her blood. Because I don't remember the answer to that. Because the whole point was Sully wasn't in the car. The whole thing was the car was... well, not unless it was Sully's blood and just from him being beat up, and then the accident was caused after. So because Simone might have already been dead by the time they disposed of the car at the beginning of the episode. I'm assuming she was. Because that's why Sully went along with all this, because of what happened to Simone, which is super sad, especially considering that was, well, that's also the messed up thing of it all. It's Sully even brought it up at the end of the episode, saying Clem, who was behind all of this, it's you killed Simone and said it's super messed up because it wasn't like she was a stranger. It's like it's someone you knew as well, because Sully and Clem go back. They used to get in trouble all the time when they were younger. But not only is like, hey, this is someone that you cared about, that was like an ex-girlfriend of yours, but also it's someone that Clem knows. So it's like, makes it extra psychopathic that just to get the point across that you're just like, oh, I'm in this, I'm for real. You're willing to kill someone you knew. Once again, it wasn't even like a stranger, but I mean, I'm sure statistically you are probably more likely to get killed by someone you know than you are like a random stranger. I'm sure the statistics probably lean more that way, but still, it's just, that's extra sad about the whole situation. Because it was even something that Sully was also trying to get across too. Like, she wasn't like us. Like, we're the screw ups here. She was just a good person. Like, she had her life. Like, she was never the troublemaker. She never got mixed up in any bad stuff, and she got drawn into this and used as leverage to force Sully's hand. But obviously, it's like, once again, breaking the whole investigation down bit by bit. Once again, was the car situation, finding out, right, it was set up to be crashed to cover up something. You figure this had something to do with the drugs because the sheriff mentioned it early on in the episode, being like, oh yeah, like he had, like COVID affected the town on an economical level. They've also got a massive increase in crime, whole bunch of drug related stuff, specifically fentanyl. So I was like, that's going to be key and paramount to this episode. I did think for a second at one point in time when Coulter was calling Sheriff Miller for backup, I was like, are we going to find out Sheriff Miller's like in the middle of this too? Like, you never quite know. I'm always just ready for like someone to be like, oh, I'm a dirty cop. I'm always waiting for the twist, you know. I've prepared myself so many times because it's happened too many times. I'm like, oh, I'm secretly a dirty cop. Some of this crime, I'm getting a little slice of that pie too, you know. I mean, we didn't actually like get rid of everyone that was involved in this situation, because there's a lady that worked at, I don't remember if it was a restaurant or bar, but where like Simone and Sully were like found by Clem and his people. That kid Zach saw everything, but then like the boss coming out there to kind of shut Zach down was like, she seems suspicious. Turns out she's involved in all of this. So she was never there during the final bust, but I'm assuming she was just as involved in the kidnapping and stuff, because she was like, she calling Clem and then being like, yo, they found Simone's body and someone's looking for Sully. So, because I think the last time we saw her in the episode is when she went to deliver food to them, and I think she stayed while everyone else went to go do the job. So I can only assume in the grand scheme of things she got busted for her own involvement in all of this. But I'm sure it's the type of situation of people started cutting deals type of thing. Because what this stems from is why the long of it all is obviously Sully was working like a very specific job. It was like some, I don't know if it was like a marine job or like a bay job. They're dealing with lobsters. But that's what this was about. It was about, because that's the thing. Clem is a small-time criminal that was dipping his toes in someone else's larger operation. Someone's operation was bringing in like fentanyl through the lobster shipments, and Clem found out about it, and he wanted to slice of that pie. And it turns out Sully works at that place, and so they would have had easy access for it with Sully's access. It's also sucky, like, the guy that's supposed to be like a friend of his, Ryan, was just as much a part of this. Because I think Ryan's the one that tipped off Clem, and that's how this whole thing got started. Because Sully didn't want to get involved, despite everyone being like, oh, like, we had our history. But another element to this is Clem got busted for something, like, and had 4 years in prison from like a robbery or whatever. And Sully was the lookout, and all he got was probation. So Clem's the type that holds a grudge. So there was an element of like, yo, you're going to help me because you owe me, and I'm going to force your hand, hence the killing Clem and stuff like that. It's kind of sad that that's what this was all for. It was all a pointless death because you walked away with absolutely nothing. And in fact, you're going to go away for an even longer time, especially because he literally just got out like 3 weeks prior. That recidivism rate is pretty high and everything, you know. So, but you're also like, Clem's not going to have any sympathy for me. Like, the dude sucks, you know. But I thought it was, like I said, the whole back and forth of the element of who knows if, at the time, whether Sully was guilty or not. And it was actually only Daniela who kept up her belief in him, despite everything coming up about, like, right, his past and who he was. He promised to change for her, and he had shown that. And it's like, there's no way, for one, she didn't believe he'd have an affair or cheat on her, because the necklace that was found in a truck. We later on find out that yes, it was from Simone, his ex, but it's because she made it as a wedding gift for Daniela, which is, once again, just makes that whole thing depressing and everything. So I also love that bit where they broke into, was it Clem's place, and it's like, oh, like Coulter just went through the front, like went through the window. It's like, wait, I don't have a warrant, and just went through it and then unlocked the door, and he's like, see, now you can come in, Sheriff Miller, because I'm breaking and entering, so you have a reason to come in here. So, but either way, luckily Coulter was able to follow Clem and his crew to go after and ultimately end up rescuing Sully. And once again, that's where you find out the details. Even the whole thing of him being held a gun, it was a test to see whether he was going to fall in line. Because the reason why this all happened was not only was like Simone's death, like, meant to make him fall in line, but there's also a reminder of like, right, we did that to Simone, we'll do that to your fiance. They've been following her enough around so they know where she is and where she works, and they could easily get to her at home. So that's what this is all about. That's why he went along with all of this, And even he was kind of beating himself down, because it's like, right, the past always finds a way back to haunt you. He is like, I thought I could change things. I thought I could get the past behind me, bury it, but it found it and reared its ugly head. So for him, he wanted to take this opportunity to get revenge and kill Clem. It's like, not only for Simone, but it's like, if I don't put you down now, I thought you were going forever, but you found your way, you squirmed your way back into my life, and I want to end this. But luckily Coulter talked him off of doing that, because it's like, right, you do that, it's not just, you get your revenge, sure, but it's your life that gets destroyed. Like, your fiance is waiting for you. You still have so much to live for. Like, if you do this, just let Clem go and let him suffer the ramifications of the law, because he will get caught, I promise you that, but don't like destroy your life in the process. And luckily he doesn't. Clem thinks he gets away, but nah, Sheriff Miller's there already, locked and loaded, got the crew with him, and takes him down. So, like they said, like he talks about in the episode, they took down the local operation. It wasn't even really a local operation. It was just Clem and his people doing things. They're going down for a long time. But the other side of the fentanyl stuff, we won't really know who that is, because they're cooperating with the DEA, and that's kind of more their investigation. So, but we'll kind of leave it at that. But at least it brings back some more peace and quiet to Sheriff Miller's town. So, and obviously admitting he was wrong about kind of assuming the worst of Sully, but even Sully even talks about it later on. Like, a lot of people have changed their tune about him. This whole situation being like, right, he helped kind of bring down this whole operation, shows a lot of people, including Daniela's dad, like, who denied the best opinion of him, just let a lot of the past of like what he did in the past influence how he was viewed to so many people. And now it's a situation I think a lot of people in town view him a different way. Definitely seems like it was mainly Daniela's dad. Her mom like was a little more like forgiving and just believing like her daughter when it's like, hey, this is the guy I love, I know he's a good person. So there was even an interesting line from Sully asking like Coulter, it's like, hey, do you think you can be able to, you're invited to the wedding, and it's just him being, once again, just kind of Coulter being like, kind of like, no, it's just, once again, like doing a job and moving on. It's just, things are easier and simpler that way. But once again, just these little character moments where I think like it's all going to build up for experience of maybe it's like, right, like especially because they had that conversation, him and Sully being like, the whole conversation of being able to let the past go, and Coulter kind of avoided the past for a long time instead of actually facing it. Once again, I'm surprised this show being structured the way it is, because obviously if this was like a lot of other shows, it'd be like, as people would describe it, maybe like episodical episode, plot, episodical episode with a little bit of plot mixed in. We haven't really gotten that. Like, the only episodes that's really covered like Coulter stuff at all, it's like we got a little bit last episode as both Renee and Bobby talked a little bit about Coulter. I believe, yeah, that was last episode. Then like episode 2 touched on his family situation a little bit. That might have, yeah, I think that was episode 2 with like the cult and everything. But also like his mom popped up again, and we haven't really circled back to any of that, which I think is so interesting that the show is structured that way. I don't know, most shows would like implement implement some of that plot, but I guess it's like for Coulter, like it's almost like building up all these experiences that will help him eventually confront the past when it comes. It must not be something that comes up until like we're gonna bookend the season with it. It's like the beginning of like maybe the first 2 episodes of the season, then maybe like the last 2 or 3 will focus on that, because I just think that's so interesting. We have yet to really touch on any of that plot, even though it's like been sprinkled in here very minutely throughout the season, just in some of these episodes, but still. Because I think it's meant to just be more so the character development of just showing you who Culture is, helping people, but also like it's not a one-way street, that it is influencing him, even if it's little, even if he's trying to minimize it, it still has an effect on him. It's still, you know, pushing him forward. So either way, it's definitely going to be interesting to see where the next episode takes us with all of this, what the next case will necessarily involve. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.